In today's video, you will learn how to easily accept payments without e-commerce on your WordPress website. So for this tutorial, we're going to be building this simple landing page to accept donations. So let's jump right in and learn how to build this. We'll start from the WordPress dashboard. On the left, we'll go to WP Full Pay. We'll hover and click on Payment Forms. Let's go ahead and add a new form. And now we'll need to name it. I'm going to call it Green Project. The form type right now is one-time payment, but we are going to go ahead and change that to donation. Moving on, the form layout is set to inline. We're going to keep that, and we'll click on Create and Edit Form. On the next screen, we are going to keep the behavior as Show Confirmation Message, and we'll move on to the Payment tab. We'll keep the default currency. Then we have our suggested donation amounts. Let's go ahead and remove the $2 option. So let's delete this, delete amount. And we're going to keep all of the other suggestions. And by the way, you can always add your own suggested donation amount. So for example, let's add $1,000. We'll add a minimum donation amount of $1. And next, we'll set our donation frequency. So let's do one time, weekly, and monthly. We don't need to generate any invoices, so I'm going to keep this as no. And if we look at the bottom, we'll see an area which we can use to configure our transaction description. This is what you'll see in your Stripe dashboard. If you click on Insert Token, you'll see a list of tokens you can use to further customize your description. What we have here is good so far, so let's move on to appearance. And here our form input label is set to donate, and I think that's fine for our example. The card input field language is set to auto. This could also stay the same. You can always select a different language if you want to. Now I'm going to go ahead and change the donation product name from My Donation to Green Project Donation. All right, we don't need to show a donation goal, and we'll keep the default locale settings as well. On the right hand side, we have our Stripe Elements appearance theme. I'm going to keep the default option, but what's really cool is that there's a night theme, which is a dark mode option. The form can also be customized using CSS. If you choose to do so, use the ID that's displayed at the top. We'll move on to form fields, and under customer data, we're going to go ahead and check billing address field. So we're going to show this on our form, and we'll keep the default settings for everything else. We don't need to add any custom fields for this example, so we're going to skip this as well. We'll move on to email notifications. We'll turn this one on to receive an email from the plugin when a donor makes a donation. The next one is sent by Stripe, so I'm also going to turn this one on. All right, so moving on, if you want to, you can go ahead and configure a webhook, but in our case, we don't need to, so I'm going to skip this. Let's save our changes. And on the next page, we're going to go ahead and preview our form. It's right here, so let's click on this icon. This is how it would look. And as you can see, it's quite lengthy, so we have to scroll within the modal. Okay, so at this point, we're going to move forward and begin building our landing page. I'm going to create a new page, and I'm going to name this Green Project Donation. And I'm going to use a 2-column section block for this page's structure. I'm going to open the list view so that we can see the structure. Let's go to the section block. Then we'll move to the toolbar on the right. We'll go to Style, then Background and Content, Background. Let's use an image from our media library. I think this forest is fine. We'll click on Select. Okay, so now we have our background set for now. Let's go ahead and customize the section just a bit more. Let's go to the Settings tab and let's set our minimum height to fit to screen. Let's also make our section full width. That looks good so far. So let's continue working on our background. We'll go back to the Style tab and back to Background and Contrast and Background. Then in Background Settings, we're going to turn off Background Repeat, so no repeat. And our background size will be cover. Okay, that looks good so far. Now let's add a gradient to our background. So I'm going to click on Gradient and we'll change our gradient colors. Let's make this one a dark green. So I'm going to move the hue slider all the way to the greens, but we'll keep some blues in there. And let's choose a super dark green so that we have some contrast when we add our text. Now we'll choose our second color, but first let's change the opacity. We'll just increase that a bit. Now it's at 100 and that's too high, so let's just dial it back. Okay, that's good. Now we're going to select a different shade of green and I'll make it lighter than the first one. So here is good. Let's move the opacity. It should be good around here for now. And let's change the angle as well. So we'll just shift this so that the darker color is all the way at the bottom and the lighter one is all the way at the top. You can always choose a preset if that's less of a headache. I'm just going for a cool monochromatic look. All right, I think that's good. Now let's go to our section and let's align the content in our first column to the center for when we need it. Let's add an advanced heading block, and just bear with me while I grab some ChatGPT content and paste it in the advanced heading block. Okay, now let's go ahead and customize this text. I'm going to go to the toolbar on the right hand side. We'll go to style, then the typography options. We'll turn on font family, and I'm going to go ahead and choose a font called Alatsi. Let's make our text color white, and the size is going to be 80 pixels. Now let's go ahead and align our column to the middle of our section. Now we'll select our first column and we'll go ahead and style it. We'll unlink the padding value so that we can add some right padding. Let's change the unit from pixels to percentage. So let's adjust it. I think it's good at about 25%. Now let's move on to our paragraph text. I'm going to insert a text block right under the heading. And once again, I'll paste my ChatGPT content. Let's make this text white. And let's duplicate our heading so that we can add the title for our second section. So I'm going to use the arrows just to bring this down below our paragraph. And on the right, I'm going to change the size to about 24 pixels. Now we need to replace the text. Now let's add a new block to paste a second paragraph. We'll make this one white, and you don't need to highlight this. Simply click on the block, but for me, it's just a bad habit. Okay, so we now have our white paragraph, and we could just go ahead and see what that looks like. Okay, so one of our fonts did not load correctly, and we also need to adjust our content width. So we'll go back to settings and we'll go to section structure. Now we'll set the max content width to 1200. We'll set the horizontal alignment to center, and then we'll preview our changes to see how it looks. Okay, that looks better, but our left column is a little bit too narrow, so let's go back to the editor and we are going to select our column, the first one, and let's decrease the padding from 25% to about 10%. Okay, that seems fine. So let's see what this looks like. And that looks a lot better. Let's work on the other column. We'll add a new block from WP Full Pay, and then we'll select our form, the green project. Now, once again, we'll check out the preview. And that's how it currently looks. But for some reason, well, for aesthetic reasons, I kind of want to leave out the billing address portion. So I'll go ahead and edit the form. I'll go to the form fields tab and I'm going to uncheck billing address and save my changes. Now let's see how it looks if we preview it again. Okay, that's a lot better, but we'll need to do some work on the column. We'll need to make the background white. So let's select the column. Then we'll go to style on the right and we'll go to the background and content tab. We'll go to background, we'll make it white, and we'll need to add about 30 pixels of padding. Now let's see how it looks. All right, looks good enough. Now let's go ahead and start working on the button. Let's add a button group block. Now for the label, let's say become a volunteer. Now I think we should change the hover state, so let's go to the style tab. And we'll find the hover tab for the button. We'll go to text and make it a green color. So now when we hover, the text should be green. That's good. Above the button, I'm going to add a section block. And this is for our photos. And yes, we could use a gallery or a grid, but I just like the flexibility that the section block offers. So here I'm going to insert an image block. And in the media library, I'm going to choose one of my photos. And I'm going to repeat this process for the remaining columns. And I'm going to speed up this part of the video. I'm also rearranging the photos, so this is how it looks right now. Let's also add a space between the photos and the button. Now for this, I'm going to use the spacer block. Now let's adjust it to about 36 pixels. I think that's fine. Let's see how it looks. Okay, I think we have a decent landing page. Let's remove this header. Back in our editor, we're going to click on this N since we're using Neve. We'll disable the header, we'll keep the footer, and we'll disable the title. So now we can go ahead and publish our changes. We'll view our page, and in my opinion, that looks a lot better. In your case, you may want to keep the header, but that's up to you. Now I'm just going to jump right into an incognito window with our web page, and I'll start filling out our donation form. So in this example, we're making a one-time donation of $5 in test mode. So as you can see here, our donation was successful. I'm going to close this window. And let's jump into my Stripe account. And in Stripe, we're also in test mode. Our last transaction is right here at the top. Let's click on it to see more information. So here are the details for our transaction. Alright, so this is how we can accept payments in WordPress, in our case a donation, without e-commerce using WP Full Pay. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching and see you next time.